All right, looks like we got a few people joining us here. We may have a few more join during the session. Give it just a second. Let everybody join who's going to join. Got 1 o'clock. All right. Chris, does that look like everybody for now? Looks good.
We can give them a few more minutes. It is just
Okay.
1 o'clock on the dot.
Sounds good. We'll give it a couple minutes here.
Yeah. I see some familiar faces that are joining us.
Yep. One big familiar face there. That's
Oh,
nice.
yeah.
Here we go.
They're
No,
trickling in now. Yeah, here we go.
all right. Good deal.
Just finishing up lunch, I'm sure.
Yep.
What a way to
Reminds
spend
me
your
I'm
afternoon.
ready to get lunch myself too. That'll be my next stop after our session today.
I ate before the webinar. I was like, I'm
That's
just
right.
going to go ahead and knock it out.
That was probably pretty smart. Give it just another minute and then we'll get rolling here.
I see Maggie typing. Hi, Maggie.
Nice. I got to remember to look in the chat too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
We'll
here
give it
for
to
you,
like,
though. You guys say hi in the chat. Let us know you're here.
all right. Well, I've got a couple minutes after 1. Why don't we go ahead and get started?
Okay.
Extend a warm welcome to everybody today. Hey, to you who have joined us. Welcome to the third in a series of 3 AI for Growth series. Today, we're going to be talking about building a custom AI tool. We're excited to have everybody join us today. A little bit about ourselves. My name is Barrett Ernie. I'm the founder and CEO of Ernie IT. This is our 25th year in business, but I love working with small businesses, medium business, all types of different business owners and help them overcome challenges and problems that they may face. And we love looking for opportunities to take IT and make it work for them, help them to make good IT decisions and build long-term success and build trust in our relationships. Joining me today on the call too is Alec. Alec, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Alec Langdon. I am the Director of Growth and Client Success at Ernie IT. Really, that just means I am the one meeting with our clients, understanding what technology needs they have, of course, meeting with prospects as well, and just understanding, and of course, right now in the environment that we're in, a lot of it's about AI. How can I use it in my business? How can I get better at it? So that's a little bit about me and my background.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Now let's welcome Tristan to the call as well too. We've got Tristan joining us.
Yeah, hey, thank you. My name is Tristan Rice. I'm the operations manager here at Ernie IT. Manage our help desk and service delivery while designing some automation and AI workflows that help us drive our operations. My focus is operational maturity, some efficiency, and then building service experience that feels proactive and not reactive.
Awesome. Thanks, Tristan. So a little shameless plug here. Obviously, we got to talk for just a moment about Ernie IT. We've been in business. This is our 25th year in business. We love helping our Southeastern North Carolina businesses. Is our focus here in our community. Obviously, we got a few joining us from the chamber, so we love working with local businesses. But really, we're experts in managed IT, cybersecurity, all gamuts of IT, and really we like to focus on the needs of organizations specifically. So it doesn't matter if you're in healthcare or in a small business. We're always looking for ways to help you achieve those long-term results that you're looking forward to, right? Helping your business be successful. And how do we do that? Well, we love building really strong relationships, and that's by means of our customer experience. We've worked really hard to develop a program that gives you the best possible IT experience. And that means prioritizing speed. We like to be fast in how we respond. And then honestly, part of our discussion today talks about what we're going to do in consistency and every client interaction we have. Doesn't matter if you're a small business or a really large business, we want to make sure that your experience that you have is consistent in all of our interactions. So Couple things about today's webinar. We'll jump to the next slide. We're going to be doing a little bit of a recap, but before I begin, I want you to stick around to the end. We've got a $50 Amazon card giveaway. Crystal will be announcing that at the end. We also have our guide that'll be available to you, so you'll be able to download that, and the tips and tricks that we're able to present here today with the demo, you'll be able to see those as well, and that's available to you. So feel free to communicate, ask questions in the chat during the session today. If there's things you want to ask us, any one of us, just throw it in the Q&A, and we'll make sure that we get that answer. We'll have a section at the end. So I mentioned a little bit about a recap. So I mentioned ahead of time that we had the previous series, AI series, and the first one we discussed was what smart CEOs are doing and asking. So it was a strategy that really, as a CEO, a leader of an organization, would help you create a strategy that frees you up to be able to lead, not just managing all the day-to-day stuff that you have to do with your workload, right? But really understanding in that session how AI fit into the daily workflow of a CEO. We talked about some tips and tricks there, identifying areas where AI could really help you save time, and then honestly looking at the questions to ask that lead to smarter AI use, and then seeing real world examples that we were able to implement and make effective in that. And then kind of coming out of that point, we discovered a number of different ways to ask the right questions. And if you think about it this way, looking at different sections of a business, a CEO kind of has an overview of all these different areas. So there are questions that every CEO should be able to ask to kind of scale their business. And I'll just take this first one, for example. If you look at marketing, is AI being used to better understand customers' needs and challenges? And let's just take a moment to talk about that. If you are overseeing marketing, and you're in a role like CEO, you want to understand not just what your clients are doing, but what your competitors are doing as well. So quicker access to market demographics and understanding what's going on is incredibly important. That's one part of marketing, but then you start to look at graphics, design, script that you're able to use in various social media platforms and all sorts of other things. Man, it really comes together. Marketing is an area we could probably sit here on this call and talk for an hour of ways that the marketing team and department, and as a CEO, you could use to help sort of speed up and make that department more effective. Well, now let's take a moment and talk a little bit about operations or ops. Tristan, you're our ops manager, man. Why don't you talk a little bit about operations and maybe go into some of the admin and legal parts as well?
Yeah, definitely. So for operations, we recently implemented a new booking calendar. It's completely automated, and it helps us get to all of our tickets a whole lot faster. So typically, what we would do whenever customers would reach out to us, we have to go through a triage process, and that might take some time for us to determine we have to either go on site or have a remote appointment with them. So one thing that we've really seen, on our team is implementing the AI automation to do the booking calendar, to make sure that everything on the calendar is getting addressed at the right time, and is really, creating some efficiencies for both us and our clients. On an admin and legal side, we can track what our team is doing and then how we can make their processes more efficient. And then, also understanding where they're spending a majority of their time, and then how, however we can automate or integrate AI in their processes to help them accomplish what they need to accomplish by the end of the day.
Awesome, man. Thank you for that. And, Alec, I know you have some experience here and input. Let's talk for just a moment about, the HR and leadership section of this discussion here.
Yeah, so our text there under the HR portion, how can AI help create stronger job postings and identify the best candidates faster? We've probably all used AI to rewrite something, an email, or maybe in this position here, a job posting. But have you ever used it to identify candidates faster? Barry, this is something that me and you have done when we get a couple hundred applicants into a new technician role for Ernie IT. Well, how are we going to bring this down? Not to, not let AI make all the decisions, but maybe it can take those 300 applicants and put it down to 30 that best go after our core values and how we want to deliver service and what we're looking for out of a candidate. So we've definitely used it like that to pass. It's not to fully take away our reviewing of of candidates, but rather speed it up, make it faster and easier to make that decision. And then leadership, there's a lot of different ways you can use this. One way that we talked about inside of our part 2 was we're coming out of maybe meetings, and sometimes it's easy to make decisions in the meetings, but what about clear deliverables after? So one example could be a note taker that allows you to then come out and say, what are the clear deliverables? Who's doing what afterwards? But yeah, these are just different ways. And it makes me think, looking at these 5 areas, Barrett, is there really anywhere in an organization that you potentially can't use AI? It doesn't really feel like it.
Yeah, you're right. And I think, Alec, just where you ended that on is kind of a great segue into the next part. I mean, you think about it, it's sort of like, yeah, there is no end to where you can use AI, but honestly, you kind of have to think about it in a way of using it for success. And honestly, when I'm looking at this part 2 here, Alec, why don't you kind of recap that for us? I could talk about it for a while, but I know you've got a lot of experience here.
Yeah, so let's look at the part 2 there. Yep. So really we took part 1 and it was all about ideas. How do you, hey, where can AI be used? Maybe a little bit of prompting advice. How do you prompt best with AI? But then part 2, we went over how do we actually implement it into your business. And we came up with a 3-step method to do this. So our first step was plan it. Stop using it like a toy and use it where you can go in and say, hey, how are we going to use AI? Let's do a little bit of brainstorming and understanding where we're going to implement it. Then build it. And today we're really going into building it, because in a little bit here, I look forward to the demo, but we're going to look at how we build an AI tool that is going to take a repeatable process and be able to speed it up. And then lastly, if we're doing all this work, if we're doing brainstorming, we're building something that's going to make your life so much easier, why keep all the information for yourself? You need to share it, get your team involved. The goal, and we've talked about this in all parts, our goal with AI for our business is never to replace people. It's to make people so much more efficient. So part 2 was all about making you, instead of 20% more efficient, like part 1 did, maybe 50, 60% more efficient, and then spreading that knowledge around to your team so that they can start using the same tools. And I look forward to really showing how build it and share it is going to be happening today with our demonstration.
Yeah. I love that, and thank you for sharing that with us, Alec. And I think about, up to this point, we've talked about how AI, we know these systems that we've talked about, they work, right? That ultimately we know that, hey, we can draft information, we can summarize it, we can organize it and clarify everything together. So yeah, AI can do all of this stuff in unison, but the challenge for us is, how do we make it consistent, right? How do we pull this all off so it ultimately is one consistent method, like we get the same outcome, right? So you think about consistency, it requires a system. You can't just expect the same output every single time without having some system in place. And that's really the point of these 4 components. Got to define the workflow, right? Standardizing the output, knowing what that is. We'll talk a little bit about this later, and it was mentioned previously, but guardrails, right? And we have to have some guardrails in place so AI doesn't just go off track. And then variability, dependence on an individual user to create, predictable results. Like, can we lock this thing in and reduce the variables that are coming out of AI? And I think about, man, these use cases, good grief, like there's so many opportunities. Alec, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think my mind immediately goes straight to, with my position at RDNT, I'm working with clients every day. And it's usually on a level of what systems can we implement, what new technology can we bring, not just fixing problems. So I immediately go to the communication, because it's just really important. When you look at before, you just talked about, hey, you want to make predictable results. And it's kind of like if you look at a brand or your marketing culture, that marketing culture is going to be very much that you need it to look the exact same everywhere. So for me, I would love a way, which I look forward to, again, looking into this demo, to be able to take communication, such as in that list, email replies, client messages, even maybe LinkedIn messages, however we're getting in contact with our clients, and standardizing it and making it predictable so that when our technicians, or when myself or Barrett or Tristan, we're all talking with clients, it's all the same idea and the same culture that we've worked so hard to implement already at REIT.
Yeah, I think that's such a great summarization of it. And that really naturally leads into our third part, which we're going to be focused on, which is building this custom AI tool, right? We have to have these pieces in place. And I think about, in this section, we're going to really take it from just a concept of execution and we're going to see how we can create this. And, a lot of times, like, hey, you have to recreate prompts, but now it's about a structured system. So in this demo today, we're going to talk through identifying a repeatable business workflow. So something that's repeatable, that happens a lot, right? Defining that role and the constraints that guide the output. So what is that? What are we doing? Remember, we got to plan this out. And then structure the format so we get predictable results. So Tristan's going to be helping us, with that information. And then there's that word again, guardrails, right? Like we have to have guardrails in so we have some consistency. And safety also comes into this equation too, right? Like we have to have some guidelines here for safety. And then test and refine the tool live. Yeah, we're going to do that. So, and a demo here, right now, what are we building? Well, quick overview, we're going to take a custom communication tool that follows our customer experience philosophy. So we talked a little bit about that earlier. We're going to use our core values and our tone, our ownership first tone for our organization. And so I'm gonna hand this over to you, Tristan. Let's walk into the demo. And again, if anyone's on here that has any questions during it, please feel free to just ask away in the Q&A.
All right. We'll go ahead and jump into the demo here. Just so preemptively, before I jump into this, we are using a ChatGPT Plus account. So you can use the free version to do this. However, the best results that you will get is by using a paid version, either ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Claude. All of those AI platforms are going to produce the best amount of results for you and your business if you have a paid version. The one that we're using is about $20 a month, so relatively affordable for end users to jump in there and use. So we'll go ahead and move into our ChatGPT. I'm already logged in here, and we'll go to the GPTs tab. And then we'll go up here to the top, we'll hit create, and then you'll see some options here. Name, description, instructions, conversation starters, some knowledge, recommended model, and then some capabilities. So first things first, we're going to go up here. We're just going to select a logo for this since we're going to be using it for our Ernie IT team. I'll go ahead and put our Ernie IT logo on here.
I love that.
We'll go ahead and make a name for it. I've got a Word doc in the side here that I've already made this stuff, and that's something that I highly recommend. Kind of take a screenshot or copy this screen to a Word document and really work with your team on building a good prompt description, maybe some conversation starters as well. That way you can get the most use out of this. For description, we'll go ahead and put a description in there, and then we'll go ahead and build our prompt.
So Tristan, it sounds like then at this point, if we're going back to part 2, we talked about a 3-step plan, right? Or a 3-step program to be able to make AI useful. And at this point, we've already done step 1, which is planning. So you've already done some back end work to really go in and see, hey, how do I want to use AI? And you've done some digging in and saying, okay, we want to use it for a good communication tool that keeps our same repeatable process, which in this case is, again, ticket responses, emails, LinkedIn messages, however it is we're communicating, even those little messages we have pop up on people's screens when we want to help them with a problem, we're making it in the same tone that we work so hard already to maintain here.
That's exactly right. Yep. So for the first line here, we'll go ahead and put in our first instruction, if you will. So we're going to say your single job is to write and refine client communications so that they strictly align with Ernie IT's customer experience philosophy and core values. You are not a generic writing assistant. You are a customer experience discipline enforcer. So this stuff's really important. We talk about guardrails. This kind of gives it a role and starts out with, what are we really looking for, preemptively when we're starting out our prompt.
Interesting. Cool.
And then we'll go ahead and we'll use some more definitions here. So always assume this is some things that we want the AI to automatically assume without having to ask us a bunch of questions. So we're going to assume that the reader is a business owner, manager, or professional decision maker. And then the context in our case is going to be IT support, projects, and advisory work. And then we'll give it some you must always prompts as well. So things that we want it to always do is protect our tone, remove some defensiveness, increase clarity, ownership, and reassurance. Keep language professional, human, and calm. For me, I don't really like to use emojis in my writing, and everyone, probably gets this as well, is when you see a bunch of M dashes in a communication, it definitely looks like it was written by AI. So we're going to make it a little bit more personable. But for those of you out there, like maybe if you own like a flower shop or, you have like a vet's office, then you can say only use flower emojis or make sure you use pet emojis in our writing to, whatever fits your, marketing creativity there.
Like emojis, man.
Yeah. And then we'll go ahead and jump into, we want this to have our core values. So if your business has some core values, what I recommend is adding those in here as well, because that's going to tie all of the things that what you want your communications to have together in a nice prompt.
Tristan, looks like we're adding a good amount of stuff in here. Really, we're giving it core values. I look forward to whatever else we're going to be adding to this. Are all these things needed, or could you start with something small of saying, I just need a good way to respond the same way. I don't want emojis and dashes. Could you make it just a custom GPT that's literally just to remove emojis and dashes maybe from your communication?
Absolutely. Yep. You can go in here. You can start out with something simple and then come in later on and then define, hey, I need a little bit more out of this thing. And you can definitely come back in here and define that.
Okay.
One quick other thing here. So I'll add our customer experience philosophy that we use here. And I'm just trimming this down just so it looks a little bit easier or looks a lot better on the screen here because it doesn't have much formatting. And I've got some formatting in my Word doc.
Interesting. So Tristan, while you're doing that, I was looking at number 7 there. It says consistency, which I know we were talking about before, and that's important. But it says no big swings in formality or mood. Is that
Correct.
explain that to me.
Yeah, it might sound a little bit silly, and this is, this might sound like a buzzword as well, but AI does have the tendency to what you call hallucinate. So if it's not sure of something, or if you don't give it certain context or really guide it through a longer conversation, it can tend to drift. So what you're doing is you're kind of locking down like a personality almost to kind of keep it on track with what you're looking for.
So it can actually have mood swings. Interesting.
Absolutely.
Okay. Good to know.
All right. And then we're going to also define our default structure of responses. So we're going to, we want an acknowledgement. We want, current status or context, an ownership statement, next steps with timing, and then reassurance and availability as well. So this is basically, we're telling the AI, this is what we want the output to be structurally. So then every time that it generates an email or generates a document for us, it's going to follow these 5 structured, in order steps in the response that we want it to put in there. And then we'll top it off with the final do not. So these are, we were talking about guardrails earlier. These are kind of our guardrails right here. So things we definitely don't want it to do. We don't want it to sound defensive. We don't want to over-explain technical things. We don't want to mirror anyone's frustration or sarcasm. Use vague phrases like we're looking into it, or use any kind of slang. And then this one here, we have, don't add signatures. Us along with a lot of our clients have a signature management platform, and we don't really need to add, our name and title and all that stuff on the end. You can remove this if you don't have that, but just for us, this is something that we like to have in there so we don't have to, remove that last piece on there. And then one final thing in this, at the very end, we're just going to define all output must be ready to send to a client with minimal edits. And what we're telling the AI here is we don't really want to have a conversation back and forth for 30 minutes. We just want results from things that we give to it. So I'll go ahead and close this out. For conversation starters, I have just a few of them here. Like we can start out with, write an email. And what these are really for is if you open up a new chat window and you're like, man, what do I say to this thing? I don't know how to get a conversation started. Um, these are really good to where you can go, you can click on them, and then the agent will start asking you, certain questions like if you want to write an email to a prospect, they can kind of work you through, a short questioning process to where it generate your email and give you the results you're looking for. Jumping down to knowledge, we have some core values and our always and never. This is something we kind of live by with our team. So I'll go ahead and add those. And then anytime that it's going to write an email, write a LinkedIn message, or anything that I really ask it, it's going to use these knowledge items, those PDFs, to build my responses. And that also ties into our prompt, where we tell it our core values and then our customer experience philosophy. It's going to use those PDFs as well to make sure that the responses are tailored to that.
Nice.
For recommended model, we don't really need to do a recommended model since this is more of a simpler GPT. But if you're doing something with like math or you're doing a lot of data analysis, you would go down here and you'd select like a thinking model. If you wanted something that's just going to give you quick data, as fast as it possibly you can choose the instant model. But in this case, we just use whatever is available. As far as capabilities go, we have web search, Canvas, which is where you can generate emails, documents, things like that, and you can go in and edit them and kind of write with ChatGPT. Image generation for generating AI images, everyone's done the caricatures and the funny office ones. You can do some of those in here as well. And then code interpreter and data analysis, we're actually going to turn this on. Reason for that is because we're giving it some PDFs. So it's going to need to use those PDFs and analyze them and kind of see the content that's inside of them. So that just helps it do that a little bit better.
Here's a question for you, Tristan.
Yep.
It looks like we gave it a lot of information. You had your planning that you already did for it with your Word document and all the different guardrails you put in place, like do nots and do's. You also gave it even our core values and always and nevers, which I think is great because a lot of companies already have these things put together. So instead of you just upload them. Do we really need to have web search on there as a checkbox when we're kind of giving it the right information already? What do you think on that?
And it's not totally necessary, but the one thing that we want to kind of keep in mind with the web search, if you're talking to somebody specific, it's going to be able to go out and pull their LinkedIn. It's going to be able to pull their information up. If you're talking to a certain business, it's going to be able to do a little bit more research on that business for you. So it's going to tailor your messages, with more accurate information. A lot of AI, agents and GPTs have a cutoff date of their current knowledge. So the current version of ChatGPT is most likely around January of this year. It could be, December of last year. So the web search kind of helps you fill that knowledge gap of whenever the model was built. Not totally necessary, but that's why prompting is so important. Telling the agent, hey, don't make up information. If you don't know, go look for it. Or only use documents provided for our core values. So it's not going to go look on the internet and make up, core values and, what we would call hallucinate. So that's, another reason why guardrails are super important when building your prompt. But, in this case, I would highly recommend leaving the web search feature on because if it doesn't know, you don't want it, coming up with information that may not be correct.
So sounds like leave it on, but then if you see, that it's pulling information from somewhere, review it. And that's kind of, I guess, that's always going to be our advice with really any AI tool. Us people are who makes the small businesses that we work at, who they are and what makes them so great. So this is a great tool to make us more efficient, but especially if you're allowing it to go out and pull data from the web, review it, make sure it aligns with what you're expecting.
Exactly. And then we'll go ahead and hit the create button right here. So that's going to create our ChatGPT, custom GPT. We'll do only me for right now. And this kind of just keeps it private so nobody else can use it. Once we're done with this, you can copy the link and then, so this link right here, and then share this amongst your team. And what'll happen whenever you do this is it'll give you a request to accept for somebody else to have access to it. And the reason why this is important is we've attached files to this. So if you attach like an Excel spreadsheet, anything with proprietary customer information or,
Mm.
or not customer information, but like proprietary company information, you don't want to expose that to the internet because web crawlers can find it if it's public and bots and things like that. So typically, you want to lock it down and then just share your link and then approve it, at your own will.
Makes sense.
So we'll go ahead and view our GPT. And then just to show you a really quick example, in an IT case, we can say Jane Doe. Her computer is broken. We need to let her know that we'll have to order a new one.
It's never an easy conversation.
Yep.
And I like that because that's going to be one where, our CX principles really are going to have to come into play, right? Like that's,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as you can see here, it wrote an email, and then we can also come back in here. Please use Canvas so I can edit and send it. So then you can see here, it puts it into a Canvas page. I can come in here and edit this.
Yeah, I can really see how this is super helpful, but I'm already seeing how you're going to go back, right, and make a V2 and a V3 and a V4 even to these different GPTs you make. I mean, an example that just comes to my mind is we have a specific procurement process, right? And we never want to tell a customer that, for example, here it says, we'll take care of ordering the new computer today. What if it said we should have a, hardware in stock for you today? And what if we don't, right? We never want to do that. So
right.
I'm already seeing a way to go in and edit and say, when talking about new hardware, remember, please reference the ordering process document that I upload. Or you've also even had to make you asked it right there to please use Canvas, right? Sounds like we could go put another guardrail that's like anytime asking an email or for a message, always give me a response in a Canvas.
Exactly.
When we make these, and for everybody on the call, when you all are going in and making these really cool tools, it's awesome, but don't just, if you have to edit it, especially if you have to edit it once, twice, three times, if you get in a couple responses and now you're a little bit like, hey, I've had to say the same thing over and over again. Don't just deal with it. That's what playing with it as a tool is, or sorry, as a toy. That's when you're not utilizing it to its full functionality. Go in, edit that GPT, and change it so that when you put in a message, the next time it fixes it. And if that happens again, you can keep refining it. But I can already see how we can add, V3s, V4s, and add more and more and more documents for it to reference that specifically it needs.
Definitely. And then, it's as simple as clicking on your GPT. You go up here, you do the drop down, click Edit GPT, and we can just click on this. And, one thing ChatGPT specifically has come out with recently is an email composer. It's super awesome because it can use an email app on your device. So in here we can put, in our you must always, add in another section here to use email composer when writing emails. We'll go ahead and hit close. We can update it, which updates it for anybody who uses it. So if you're managing this for your team and you want to update the settings, it will also update it for them as well.
That's really
So
cool.
I come back in here, write another email to Jane Doe about her broken computer.
I guess my takeaway of this is, there's so many things that we do like this that they're so repetitive, and sometimes you get those inconsistent, outputs, and it's like we just have to remember if we can take a process like this, going back to what we were saying earlier about planning it out, thinking this process through. So like my takeaway is I need to look a little bit more in depth about the things that I'm having to go and alter each time, because I'm definitely doing that, right?
Yep.
So if I could create this, edit, continue, as Alex said, to refine it, Yeah, Tristan, this would be really helpful. Save us a lot of time.
Definitely. Yeah. And this is, as you can see there, we gave it that one simple instruction change in the prompt. And now whenever I,
Mm.
ask it to write an email, I have this email composer in here, which I can click open a mail, and it goes to,
Huh.
if I use my Outlook app, it'll just pop open Outlook with it ready to go. It's got the subject in. The only thing that I've got to do with this is type in the person's name that I'm going to send it to. Everything else is filled out for me. And this is great too, because you can come in here and you can actually edit this. It's not just, something where you can click a send button on. You can actually come in here and, ask for changes. You can, add in web links, actual bold, italics, things like that. And it's all email client compatible. So super cool feature, that kind of fits into that custom GPT.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Sounds like really from these webinars are mainly how leaders can come in and utilize AI more. And that three-step process of planning it beforehand, building it, but then now hopefully that we can make a process for your team that says any kind of communication that goes out needs to be hit by Ernie IT customer experience writing assistant first, right? You make that process that a ticket response needs to go out there. Tristan, can you show us how maybe we can get our team involved in this custom GPT that you've already made, and now it's kind of that
Yeah.
third step. Share it with your team, and then of course offline we can train them on how to use it.
Yeah. So you just go into click on your GPT. As soon as it comes into here, you can go into the edit, or I think you can do the about. Yeah, if you go to about, oh, nope, I'm wrong. You go to edit, and then in here, there's the share. So we can do copy link, and then I can send this to one of our team members. Whenever they go to view it, they can request access to it. And then as soon as we approve the notification that comes in for it, they'll have access to that GPT. We can also change this to where it's anyone with a link. Just kind of thing with that is if you have any files attached to it, they are publicly accessible if somebody does come across your link.
Hmm. Very cool. Very cool.
That makes sense.
Man, I really appreciate this. I think just when we look at an opportunity like this, within our organizations, to implement, for everybody on the call today, it's like, if you had a couple takeaways, one, here's a really powerful tool that you can use frequently and be able to, take away. There's going to be a little bit of improvement and process that you're going to have to go through. But man, I'm just thinking here, even for myself, the amount of time that I can just chip out of a day. And I love, by the way, that the email piece of that, like that's something I kind of struggle with. So I literally just learned that's great. To
Yeah.
be able to add that in, that creates some more efficiency. So I really think, we'll just kind of open it up. We got a few people here in the group. If you've got any questions, we've got some time now for a little bit of Q&A. I know just throwing this out there while we're looking for them. I know previously, let's see. What do we have here? How do you ensure data privacy and security with AI integrations? That's a really good question. Let's see. One of you guys want to take a stab at that one? Because that's a big
Yeah,
one.
definitely. One thing with that is, make sure that before you're putting, customer information to AI, anything that you're using on ChatGPT, Gemini, whichever the platform, they're going to use the data that you're putting in there to train. So if it's something that, you wouldn't feel comfortable with, a customer, it wouldn't be like, hey, that's my information, or it's something that you wouldn't feel comfortable, just handing to anybody. That's one thing you really need to keep in mind. In the terms of like AI integrations, where like let's say you're integrating with HubSpot, you're integrating with OneDrive, or any of the applications within those platforms that you can sign in and link to your ChatGPT account or link to your Gemini. Those are relatively secure, but still just be mindful of the things that you're putting into it and sending out, just like you would a regular email.
I
I've
think
always
that's a
had
great.
the
Go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I've always had the mindset of, especially with these public tools, the Chat GPTs, the ones that you can quickly search online, do they use their own data to train, or is it a fully private environment? I've always had the mindset of, would you be embarrassed if it wound up on LinkedIn? I wouldn't really be embarrassed if my email to Jane Doe asking her how to make a very customer focused email back to her about that replacement wound up somehow posted somewhere, I wouldn't be embarrassed on that. But if I'm pasting in client information, I would definitely not want that. Somebody else's private information, or of course our own. That's always been my rule go-to when it comes to these models like ChatGPT that uses whatever you give it to train itself.
Yeah, and I was going to add, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, Alec, is the individuals and the types of businesses too make I think a big impact and difference here. So I'll just speak for a second on that, because if you're concerned with data privacy and AI integrations, you could be in a regulated industry, right? And you would need to have within your organization, a policy for your employees to help address this sort of use. If you're a very small business, if you're a few people and you're not in a regulated industry like finance or healthcare, then just what you guys just said, I think it's great. Like, you need to be conscious and comfortable with what you're posting. I think that's a great way to approach it is, and just like the sharing of the tool out, be conscious of, just like everything else, what are you sharing? Are you aware? Like, would you be okay with it? So I think that's a great way to answer that. We got another question here. It says, what are the biggest mistakes to avoid when creating a custom AI tool? That's a good one. What do you guys think?
My opinion is not editing it, not going in and making the change. It's not going to be perfect first time. If you're going in there and adding guardrails, you're probably going to go in multiple times. And then you're also going to realize it's not perfect for everything. For example, if a client reached out to us about contract information, about different terms on whatever it might be, I maybe wouldn't want it going through one. Maybe I'd want a very similar one, but I've also I've input and uploaded our master service agreement and our SLA document so that it can reference those. So my biggest takeaway is keep editing them, and then if you come up with another use case, you're not going to run into a big limit when it comes to how many you use, as long as you document them well.
Yeah, I would say there's two for me, because this is a question that I get asked a lot since I deal with a lot of AI and integration and automation stuff. Not being vague in your prompting is super important. So like if you give the AI a prompt where you're like, I need you to improve productivity, you have to be more specific on, what is productivity to you? Because productivity to me is probably different than what Alec, defines it as, and what Barrett defines it as, probably all of us, because we, have our own scopes that we go down, to do our job role. So one of the things you want to avoid is like vague goals, like, improve the productivity. You're not defining a persona, or you're giving it like your core values to follow, kind of like an employee, like what would you want out of your employees?
Right.
Or, what do you typically look for whenever you're hiring? So that's
Right.
really good to have in there as well. Really define what you're using it for. That's something for me is really big. And then just kind of overestimating the model intelligence. You'll get more inconsistent outputs and like we said, hallucinations, risky decisions, if you're letting the AI fill gaps on data that's not known. So if you're giving it something that's very specific to you, very specific to your industry, but you're not supplementing it with factual information, you are letting it Google search, you are letting it go find the information on its own. Just kind of be mindful of that, that the information that it gives back may not be accurate. And if you are getting some unintended results back that are a little bit frustrating to look at and read, that's whenever you go in and change your prompting and kind of change maybe the style of explaining what you want out of the AI itself.
Yeah, that's really good. And I noticed too, when you had your script, I mean, you were very direct. It was very precise. It was very almost authoritative in the way you spoke. And then, and I was thinking too, just to add, it's like you wouldn't tell someone, well, just be nice. Well, it's like, well, what does that
Yeah.
mean to different
Right.
people? So the same kind of concept here. It's like you have to be very, very clear in your direction so that you achieve the output that you want. So I think that's a really good point, and I appreciate you guys answering that. Hopefully that answers the question for, what was that, Jack? So that's a good one. We appreciate that. We had a question earlier too that I believe Maggie was asking about different versions of ChatGPT, but I think you answered that too with, in this particular instance, we can share out our this work that we just did. So like for you, I mean, we could share this with our entire help desk team. And Tristan, you may have addressed this, but those changes that you make, will those be pushed out to the model? So if somebody
Yep. So where you see the last updated February 20, well, it's not on the screen anymore, but whenever I was on the actual screen, it'll say last edited and it has a time and date. So, it'll let them know, whoever's using that the model's been updated. It gets pushed out as soon as you hit update, because whoever owns the model or whoever creates the model ultimately is the one who can, change and add updates to it and things like that. So if you have an older chat that was used in the past and you kind of go back and revisit that, it'll tell you in a little, kind of a disclaimer at the bottom that the GPT has been updated. And if you want to, use the newer version of it, then to start a new chat. Uh, so yeah, it will tell you that it's been updated in, any regard of like going back to previous chat or just visiting the GPT settings.
Oh, that's really helpful. Appreciate that. All right, so we got one more question here we'll do, and that's let's see, what tools, pull this up, what tools, and we can kind of address this twofold, what tools are best when building a custom AI system? So that's kind of a broad question. And then he follows up, we've got another one from Mary. How long does it take typically to see ROI from a custom AI setup? So a couple different questions, two different answers, but the first one, what tools integrate best when building a custom AI system?
For this, not to get too technical, but there
Yeah.
are, I mean, there's a lot of tools out there. One thing that I think is really important is integrating, like starting out with your calendar. Like that's probably the easiest tool that you can, get with a custom AI system. That's what we did, with the booking calendar, with our help desk team. Something super easy, but it saves a lot of time. After that, integrating things like with your email, maybe pulling some documents that you use really frequently, like a process document, incorporating that into the AI is really important because it's really going to tailor your experience beyond what you're going to get out of just signing up for it and talking to a chat box.
That's helpful. All right. And then ROI. I mean, I'll just take this one. How long does it typically take to see ROI from a custom AI setup? I mean, honestly, guys, and certainly, chime in on this, but I feel like that just 100% depends. You could have an immediate ROI. I
Mhm.
mean, here's a simple tool that is, we said $20 a month. I mean, you could take your average hourly rate and say, okay, it's saved X, and I've just saved this much time in a day, in a week, in a month, and boom, there's your personal ROI. For a business, the use case, exponentially grows from there. But anything else you guys want to add, to that one?
I'd say just it pretty much instantly. You know, do it something simple. What we did today was pretty simple,
Yeah,
and it can instantly make your within a week, if you just make sure your emails go through it, can speed up how much editing you're doing on email communication. So if it's simple tools with simple problems, it can be instant.
Yeah, definitely. And to kind of end that and piggyback off of, what you guys are saying, one thing that's really important is, if you're noticing that it's not doing what you want it to do, making the edits, making the changes are super critical, because you're just going to end up frustrated if you don't make any of those edits, or you don't do maybe just a little bit more research into how a certain tool works, because having, an informed interaction with it is really important. And then also, when it comes to ROI, AI can help you solve issues within a process, but you kind of have to have an idea from A to Z, like what your process looks like and what you're really trying to accomplish. If you haven't reached a definition of what you're trying to accomplish, then you're going to kind of go for a wild ride. So I would really keep that in mind. So if you ever do have any frustrations where you're like, man, this thing's not really helping me out, even, and Alec, you've mentioned this before, even just asking, as silly as it sounds, asking the AI, what can I do to improve this, or what can I do differently or say differently to improve my experience here. It's gonna, bring things back, and tell you, you can try this or you can try that. So that, that would be my recommendation for that.
Awesome, guys. Super helpful. I hope we got everybody's questions answered and got a lot of benefit. We're a few minutes ahead of schedule, early, just by a few. We appreciate everybody that was able to join us today and stick with us. A couple things. You can download your free guide for access to the prompts used in this webinar. Crystal, I don't know if we have picked out somebody who is a winner of our Amazon gift card.
Yes, our big winner today is Miss Maggie Gorham.
All right, Maggie,
Yay!
congratulations. Awesome.
Whoop, whoop,
Awesome.
lucky day. Should go
So
play the lottery.
there you go. Good for you, Maggie. That's exciting. And just a couple little cleanup things here, just to let everybody know. We're available. So if you have questions, our email address is listed right here, in the webinar. And of course, our phone number and available information. We want to also mention that we have our open office hours. This is something new that we're going to be starting. It's going to be monthly for now. We may increase it depending on demand, but from 12:30 to 1:30, March 5th on Thursday, we'll have access to be able to ask questions, get resources, information. So, hey, you asked us some questions today. They were really great. We'd like to encourage you to, come to our open office hours. It's available to the general public and to our clients so that, we're a resource available to you where you can get some of these questions answered. And we may have some dedicated material that will cover in those events, probably AI focused, maybe some products or tools that we use as well that will focus in on there, but really want to be able to answer questions for everyone there. And again, 12:30 to 1:30 Thursday, March 5th. And that is it, guys. It's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think I've covered everything. Appreciate both Alec and Tristan and Crystal for your hard work on this as well, too. So,
Yeah, thank y'all
thank you.
again.
All right.
Thanks, y'all. See ya.